A company losing $5 billion a year is about to go public and your retirement account is going to buy it. Not because you chose to, because the Nasdaq rewrote its rulebooks 6 weeks before the offering. And the mechanism that makes passive investing easy for you is the same one that makes you a guaranteed buyer for whoever can squeeze their way into the index. SpaceX, OpenAI, Antropic. Everyone and their mother has heard of these companies. Anthropic didn't even exist 5 years ago. All three are headed for public markets in 2026. And almost nobody is talking about what that actually means for the people on the other side of the trade.
The soap opera.
Before the numbers, there's a storyline running underneath all of this that changes how you read everything else. Elon Musk co-founded OpenAI in 2015. He put $38 million in, helped recruit the team, genuinely believed he was building something for the betterment of humanity rather than profit. But in 2018, he left the board. And then he watched the company he helped start take billions from Microsoft, go for profit, and become the most valuable private company on earth. So in 2024, he sued. He brought two claims: that Altman and Brockman breached the charitable trust he created by breaking their promise to keep the company a nonprofit, and that they unjustly enriched themselves at his expense. He wanted the restructuring reversed and both of them removed. Here's the thing though. OpenAI and Elon Musk had discussed a for-profit conversion as early as 2017. OpenAI created its first for-profit arm in 2019, and the statute of limitations on his claims was 2 to 3 years, and he filed in 2024. The math on that isn't complicated. Musk, one of the most lawyered-up people on the planet, almost certainly knew it before he filed. This lawsuit was less about winning in court and more about making the next few years as uncomfortable as possible for a direct competitor. OpenAI's lead lawyer said it plainly in his opening arguments. It's too late now to gin up something to harm a competitor. The jury took under 2 hours, and it was unanimous and it was dismissed. What the trial did accomplish, intentionally or not, was put a lot of uncomfortable information on the public record before OpenAI opens its books to the world, including the fact that Sam Altman, the CEO steering this company towards $1 trillion listing, currently holds 0 equity. His ownership stake literally reads TBD. And that's going to be a question every institutional investor wants to know. 3 companies, 1 honest look. So what are you actually buying? SpaceX isn't what most people think it is. The rocket business did about $4 billion in revenue last year. That's real money, but it's not $1.75 trillion money. The actual engine is Starlink, the satellite internet, 10 million subscribers across 150 countries, $11.4 billion in revenue in 2025, with profit margins that went from 41% to 63% in 2 years. That's genuinely one of the better businesses built this decade. Then SpaceX acquired xAI, and xAI was burning over $1 billion a month. Roughly the same amount Starlink was generating in profit. Every co-founder had walked out by 2025, and Elon publicly admitted on his own platform that the company needed to be rebuilt from scratch. So the picture you get is Starlink is printing cash on one side of the ledger, while xAI is destroying it in almost equal measure on the other. And the company entity ended up $5 billion in the hole last year. That's the company going public at $1.75 trillion. Now, OpenAI is one everyone has an opinion on, usually shaped by how they feel about Sam Altman. In March 2026, it closed the largest private funding round in Silicon Valley history. $122 billion at an $852 billion valuation, with SoftBank, Amazon, and Nvidia among the backers. Revenue is tracking around $25 billion annualized, and the growth is real. But there's a pattern underneath the funding worth paying attention to. OpenAI takes a massive check from Microsoft. Microsoft's valuation rises because of that stake. Then OpenAI uses that capital to sign compute deals with Amazon. And then Amazon invests in OpenAI. SoftBank commits tens of billions to OpenAI and also funds half the other AI ecosystem OpenAI competes with. The money moves in a circle. Each check validates the last one. Each valuation justifies the next round. It's not fraud, but it's just what the top of this hype cycle looks like from the inside. The cyclical nature of all this has been contained in these private markets, but the public markets become the first real price discovery that isn't happening between people who all need the number to go up. Anthropic is the most interesting of the 3. While OpenAI was building ChatGPT to a consumer product used by 900 million people weekly, Anthropic almost went entirely in the other direction. 85% of its revenue comes from business customers. Enterprise AI spending now sits at 40% for Anthropic versus 27% for OpenAI. The cleanest way to put it is OpenAI is a consumer company making enterprise products, and Anthropic is an enterprise company that also has a consumer product. That positioning didn't happen by accident. Anthropic was founded by former OpenAI researchers who left over concerns about safety and where the company was headed. They built the entire identity around that. Slower, more deliberate, and constitutional AI. And when businesses started needing AI they could trust inside sensitive workflows, Anthropic was already there with the receipts. The Pentagon moment made it tangible. The Defense Department wanted unrestricted access to Claude, including for fully autonomous weapons and mass domestic surveillance. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei said the company cannot in good conscience agree to that, and the Trump administration blacklisted them. The DoD announced deals with 8 other companies to fill the gap. Both SpaceX and OpenAI are on that list. Then something unexpected happened. Claude hit number 1 on the App Store. Enterprise adoption accelerated, and in April of 2026, Anthropic surpassed OpenAI in business spending share for the first time. Turns out drawing a line and holding it resonated with a lot of companies that have their own reputations to think about. Anthropic now projects positive cash flow by 2027. OpenAI is forecasting over $14 billion in losses in 2026 alone. In secondary markets, Anthropic has been trading near $1 trillion, with a June IPO now reportedly in sight. The rule change. So what happened here? On May 1st, Nasdaq adopted what it's calling the fast entry rule. 3 changes, all buried into a technical filing announced right as SpaceX was targeting a June listing. The waiting period to join the Nasdaq 100 dropped from 3 months to 15 trading days. That buffer existed so the market could find the real price before passive index funds were legally required to buy in automatically. And now that's gone. The 10% minimum free float requirement, meaning at least 1/10 of the company had to be publicly tradable, is eliminated. SpaceX is targeting around 4 to 5%. 6 months ago, that would have been an automatic disqualification. And there's the multiplier. For companies with a float under 20%, Nasdaq now weights that float as 3 times higher than it actually is for index purposes. So a 4% float gets treated as 12, and a 5% float gets treated as 15. The funds tracking the Nasdaq 100 aren't just allowed to buy, they're mathematically required to buy more than the actual available supply would normally dictate. So why is the Nasdaq doing this? See, the Nasdaq is a product. The index is a product. ETFs pay a licensing fee to track it. The more high-profile companies inside, the more assets flow into these products, and the more licensing revenue that the Nasdaq collects. Getting SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic into the index fast isn't just convenient for the companies, it's good for Nasdaq's own bottom line. The rule changes that happen to accommodate a 5% float and compressed price discovery aren't just a coincidence. They're an alignment of incentives. So who gets left holding the bag? There are more than 200 investment products tracking the Nasdaq 100 with over $600 billion in assets. The moment any of these 3 companies enters that index, every one of those funds buys the stock automatically at market price, and no human making that call. SpaceX is targeting 30% of its IPO for retail, far above the standard 5 to 10%. The CFO told a room of bankers that retail buyers have been incredibly supportive of Elon, and they want to recognize that. What he's actually describing is directing the largest chunk of new supply towards the buyers least likely to interrogate the valuation before clicking buy. The structure is the same across all 3. All the early backers are sitting on shares that they got for pennies on the dollar, and then passive funds and retail investors absorb it at peak valuation. Their exit is not a door, it's your 401k. In all, Starlink works. It's an amazing product. ChatGPT changed how millions of people do their jobs, and Anthropic drew a line in the ground that most companies wouldn't, and it paid off. None of these are scams, per se. But you probably weren't planning to invest in any of them at a combined valuation of $3 trillion while they're still losing money. You weren't planning to buy in through a listing process built to compress price discovery. And you definitely weren't planning to do it through rules that got rewritten 6 weeks before the offering. You didn't get a say. The product sold to you as the smart, low-fee, set-it-and-forget-it way to invest, the same one financial advisors put your parents in, has a mechanism baked into it that turns you into a guaranteed buyer for whoever can get into the index. No vote, no opt-out, and no notification. SpaceX, OpenAI, Anthropic. 3 juggernauts, 1 year, and somewhere between the rocket launches and the AI hype and the courthouse drama, the financial system quietly changed the rules, and the bill lands in your retirement.